Join Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu for his presentation of Developing Positive Self-Images and Discipline in Black Children. Dr. Kunjufu presents realistic guidelines and positive developmental concepts for helping black children cope and achieve.
Before we look at the workshop on developing positive self-images and discipline in black children, my major position remains the same. I believe the children are actors, and they act out what they see in us. If the teaching 201 cannot get along to teaching 203, you have the exact same problems with children. If parents tell their children, don't do as I do, but do as I say, they have not taught them what's correct. They're taught them to be inconsistent. I repeat, children are actors, and they act out what they see in us. Now, I believe my workshops can be informative, but they cannot change attitude, and I'm very disappointed about that. I work hard with regards to research, but certain things cannot be changed, especially with regards to attitude. What am I getting at? As we begin to look at trying to close the gap or improve black student achievement, my major concern is you cannot teach a child that you do not love. And there are large numbers of children in classrooms where they are not loved. I also believe you cannot teach a child you do not respect. And there are large numbers of black children in classrooms where they are not respected. And then last but not least, I also believe you cannot teach a child you do not culturally understand. In other words, we have integration, or should I be clear, desegregation. But we have many teachers who do not understand the culture of black children. And you cannot teach a child you do not culturally understand. The program is called Closing the Gap, trying to close the gap between black and white student achievement, trying to increase black student achievement. For example, the average white European child on the Iowa, California test is scoring at the 60th percentile nationwide. The average white European child in America on the Iowa, California test is scoring at the 60th percentile nationwide. The average black African-American child in the same test is scoring at the 30th percentile nationwide. Now, what explains this 30-point differential? There are at least 5 different reasons, and I'm in trouble if you give me more than the 5 I'm looking for. But there are at least 5 reasons for this gap. What do you think contributes to this differential between the average white child scoring the 60th percentile on the Iowa and California test and the average black child scoring the 30th percentile on the same test? What are some of the reasons?
Cultural bias in the test.
Okay, and your first name is? Shirley. Couldn't even get a water break because you answered so quickly. So Shirley, I think it's number 4 on my list, and that's the cultural bias of the test. And Shirley, I like to call that the curriculum, not just the test, but the curriculum in terms of their cultural biasness. I want to also look at the issue of methodology, learning styles, and I want to look at what you just mentioned, and that's evaluation design, the test itself. Any other reasons besides the curriculum, methodology, evaluation design? Any others? Yes. First name?
Gwen.
Gwen.
Perhaps expectations?
From whom?
From the teacher.
Okay, very honest group, Gwen. Gwen, that's number 5 on my list. It's not that I place in this category because of its significance or importance. I simply want to save the best for last. I want to talk about everybody else first, and then we'll begin to talk about you. So, Gwen, we'll be getting it to you in a few minutes. Any others? Yes, first name?
Richard.
Richard.
Expectations from the parents.
Okay, and Richard, that's number 2 on my list. Parental involvement and support. I was wondering if this group would blame the one we love to blame the most, and that's the parents. First name?
Lois.
Lois.
I think the child's expectations.
And Lois, do you mind if we also connect that to self-esteem for students? Okay, so in this case, we're looking at student self-esteem. Now, there's one more. There's probably a lot more. But the other one that we have to have in order to continue, and that's why we have it in the number 1 position, it's so easy to, so difficult to identify, and that's the peer group. We are very concerned about the peer group. Now, I'm very proud of this particular group because in most workshops across the country, beside these 4, and the one we were also looking for was the peer group, many times people say, well, it's ability. There's at least 1 or 2 persons in this audience that believe it's ability. And then every once in a while we get someone who also looks at the environmental factors, racism, economic deprivation, sexism. And we acknowledge that. There's no way in the world that these stats are not also affected by economic deprivation and racism and sexism. But see, in an hour workshop like this, we may not be able to change how Ronald Reagan thinks, or David Rockefeller, or Caspar Weinberger. We may not be able to change what white men make, $403 a week, and black women make about $234. We may not be able to change that. But we can change the influence of the peer group, parental involvement, student self-esteem, the curriculum, teacher expectations. At least we can make an attempt at that. Now, as I said earlier, there's at least 1 person in this room that may think it's ability. I want to pause and look at this. Because if it's ability, then black colleges, independent black schools, the Effective Schools Project, magnet schools cannot produce a quality product. If it was ability, then black colleges, that only receive 25% of the students, but produce 50% of the graduates, cannot produce that kind of product. And if you think they're inferior, those students that go on to graduate training at white universities and receive their degrees, 75% of them receive their undergraduate training in a black undergraduate school. So if it was ability, the same ability that other schools work with, then black colleges, independent black schools, magnet schools cannot produce a quality product. It is not ability. And since we cannot change environmental factors, let's now look at the other 5. Peer group, parental involvement, student self-esteem, the curriculum, and teacher expectations. We apologize for going as fast as we are. We're condensing a 6-hour workshop into about an hour. And the first area I want to look at is the issue of the peer group. What we're concerned with here is that we believe that schools are more than academic institutions. They are also social institutions. In other words, very few of us have been trained on monitoring the peer group. And yet this may be one of our greatest competitors or influences on the minds of our children. It has gotten so bad that when black boys want to do a good job in school, they're labeled sissies. It's gotten so bad when black youth want to do a good job in school, they're called, you're trying to act white. And that's deep. Deep in 2 areas. First of all, here we are, the people that built the pyramids. First to read and write. And yet now we're going to attribute academic achievement to another race. That's problem number 1. But problem number 2, do you know how much pressure is on our youth? Trying to, on the one hand, please their peer group that has one set of values, and then please you, teachers and parents, with another set of values. A tremendous amount of pressure is on them. And we have to begin to understand that pressure. We are very much concerned about the Jackie Robinson syndrome. In other words, in the class of 30, we'll have our 1 or 2 black students in our gifted and talented programs, our honors programs, our AP programs. In other words, the Jackie Robinson syndrome all over again. In other words, we're going to take our 1 or 2 top black students and put them in the class of 30 students. Do you know what it's like being the Jackie Robinson of the class? And your peer group teasing you for being in there, and you have to be the only 1 or 2 in that kind of class? There are some other school districts who are trying to close the gap that realize if they want to increase the odds, stabilize black student achievement, 1 or 2 is not enough. In other words, some schools are now looking at, let's say, having 10 to 15 students in that kind of setting. So they can reinforce it not just academically, but also socially. Again, a tremendous amount of pressure, being the only 1 or 2 in the class. And you know what, some insensitive teachers in a setting like this, when they have to discuss a black issue, they ask the black child, well, what do you think about that? Do you know what it's like being the only black child, having to be the authority on all black issues, and you don't want to be black, no way, no how? A tremendous amount of pressure. So if we want to increase the odds, we have to increase the number of students in those classes, because schools are more than academic institutions. They are also social institutions as well, and we have to begin to look at that. We also believe that competition is healthy. In other words, we are very much concerned that many of our children are shying away from academic competition, and they are very much involved in athletic competition. In other words, we believe that competition is healthy. We believe it sharpens your skills. We believe that there's a psychology of performance, or let's be clear, the fear of failure. Many black youth are afraid of competing in academic activities and more confident in athletic activities. And what's sad is many schools allow it, not just in 9th grade. As early as 4th and 5th grade, we have many black youth shying away from academic competition and more involved in athletic competition. As I said earlier, we believe that competition sharpens your skills. And we believe that our youth need to be involved in both of these 2 particular areas. In other words, in integrated schools, not desegregated, in integrated schools, these principals have told me, if I have a 50-50 black-white school, then I don't want a 100% black basketball team and a 100% white science fair team or white debate team. And if it means going the extra step, like the Boston Celtics, to get some white ball players, I'm going to do that. If it means going the extra step to get some black students in debate and science fairs, I'm going to do that. Because they are committed to having students involved in both academic and athletic competition. Because it sharpens your skills. And we are concerned about that. In other words, let's move away from the varsity approach to academics, where you only have the top 1 or 2 students representing the school. We believe in the intramural approach. We believe in a class of 30 students, let's have 6 teams of 5 players. Let's have everyone involved in athletics. Let's have everyone involved in academics. Because competition sharpens the skills. But you know what's sad? Even schools give more glory to their ball players than their scholars. In other words, for the basketball winners, they get these big trophies. For the debate team, they get these little certificates. We're the pep rallies for the honor roll. In other words, we give them to the basketball team, but why not to the academic scholars and achievers as well? In other words, we are illustrating where our priorities are. We want to change that priority. We've got to find ways to infiltrate the peer group, to get them all involved in both academic and athletic competition. Some other ideas on this. The University of Michigan did a study when you and I were growing up, and they wanted to find out what was the major influence on children. The University of Michigan reports in 1950 that the greatest influence on children was the home, followed closely by school, then church, then peer group, then television. Now, Gwen, you probably call these the good old days. Home, school, church, peer group, and television. Hold your brothers, we give you 1980, 1985. Home is still number one, but the streets, the peer group, that's what we're talking about, is now in the number 2 position. Television and video games are number 3, predicting number 1 sometime this year. School has now dropped down to the 4th position, and I'm sorry, you can't find church anywhere on a map. A whole lot has happened in 30 years. I want to again pause and look at the peer group, your greatest source of competition. In other words, the power of the peer group is because they look like each other. You will always emulate those people that look like you. What am I getting at? To connect it to the classroom? I became a writer to make sure I'm not misquoted. A white teacher can teach a black child math because expectations transcend race. Don't misquote me. I'm in no way saying that a white teacher cannot teach a black child because expectations transcend race. But a white teacher cannot teach a black child how to be black. In other words, in order to be a black engineer, you need to see a black engineer. The power of the peer group, they look like each other. In other words, when I ask black boys across the country to name me 5 black male entertainers, they don't have a problem. Name 5 black male athletes, they don't have a problem. But when I ask them to name me 5 black men with college degrees, they have all kinds of problems. In other words, if we cannot increase black staff at your school, then what I recommend you do, like what St. Louis is doing, is have a central role model program. So we begin to bring in black role models on a regular basis. So we don't want to take the white teacher out of class, but if he or she has to stay there, then we want every week or at least once a month role models coming in so our youth can see black achievers. And we need to centralize that kind of program. The power of the peer group, they look like each other. Another secret about the peer group. You see, in most classes, let me do it this way, I'll use another sheet. In most classrooms, you have 30 students and you have 1 teacher. And it's almost 30 against 1. That's how it's phrased. 30 against 1. You always lose with odds like that. We have got to find ways to get the odds in our favor. In other words, I recommend that a teacher identify who the leaders are. You see, we must get them to buy into our value system. We must find ways to infiltrate the peer group, to inculcate our value system into theirs. And that first of all means identifying who the leaders are. And let me give you a secret. The leaders don't walk around saying, with a t-shirt, I'm the leader, I'm running the class. They do it with body language. They do it with eye contact. And so the first step is, do you know how to identify the leader? And then once you do, either before school, after school, or some break, pull him or her over to the side and try to inculcate your value system into theirs. Then they will begin to proselytize the other parts of the peer group. We have got to get more of the peer group buying into our value system. You see, the peer group does not have to be negative. It can also be positive. The question is, which value system they're going to promote. We have to begin to look at those kinds of issues. And so we recommend these kinds of strategies for the peer group. We recommend that, first of all, we begin to put more priorities on our academic achievement over athletic achievement. We also recommend moving away from the varsity approach to the intramural approach. We recommend that you identify who the leaders are. We recommend we bring in more role models to our program, provide pep rallies for academic achievement. But my major concern here is that schools are more than academic institutions. They are also social institutions. It is sad to say this, but you could have been doing your job. Parents could have been doing their job. And it all go for naught because the black and Hispanic peer group are reinforced what kind of gym shoes they wear, what kind of clothes they wear, how well they fight or dance, and not academic achievement. This is not theoretical. I was in honors classes when I was in high school. And I was so influenced by my peer group, I flunked the whole marking period intentionally, trying to get kicked out. Had it not been for my father, who then kicked my butt, I'd had some very serious problems realizing his size 11 on my rear end was more important than my peer group. But let me give you a secret. when you want to reinforce academic achievement, especially for black boys, it becomes suicidal if he's not also involved in the martial arts. In other words, I was still in honors programs, but I was allowed to run track and also in martial arts because my peer group did not respect my honors achievement, but they did respect my martial arts belt. We have to begin to look at those kinds of areas. Before we move on to the next area with regards to parents, any comments about the peer group? Its tremendous impact on academic achievement. Any comments or questions? You got 30 seconds, so I'm moving on. Yes, sir. First name?
Michael.
Michael.
What can teachers do to influence this in the context of a classroom situation?
Well, I tried to mention a couple, Michael. One, I wanted you to identify who the leaders were and begin to sell your value system to them. Secondly, I wanted you to bring more role models into your classroom so they can see blacks in high professions that have advanced themselves. Three, I wanted you to provide, or with your school, to provide more academic achievement in terms of glorifying that, in terms of pep rallies and trophies and the like. Any other comments about the peer group? A major source of competition. Another area, parents. We're very concerned about the role of parents with regards to our schools. And one of our concerns, there's a distinction between involvement and support. These two words are not the same, but they're used synonymously. And we want to begin to look at that. Parental involvement and parental support. Parental involvement is attending a PTA meeting, baking baked goods for a bake sale, selling raffle tickets for a raffle sale. Look, if I never attend your PTA meeting, but I monitor my child's peer group, I monitor television, we go to the library on a regular basis, that's support. Now, I know you want them both, but between the two of them, I sincerely believe support is a lot more significant than parental involvement. But I do agree, after we get the support, we also need the involvement. So I've begun to look at Head Start, to begin to look at Chapter 1, to look at some effective principles in terms of what they do with our students. And I found there are certain things that they do. First of all, we have to find ways to market our programs. I often ask principals, how many parents are going to be there tonight when I speak to them? Well, I don't know. I sent out 1,000 flyers. That tells me right there they don't know a thing about black culture. Because the rumor is, if you want to make sure black folks don't find out about it, put in a book. In other words, we are not a written people primarily. It's the oral tradition. If you want me there, call me up. So 1,000 flyers may only generate 10 parents. But a personal invitation, a personal phone call, that's what Head Start does. That's what Chapter 1 does. So they use, first of all, the oral tradition. They find ways to communicate in other ways beside a printed flyer. And then secondly, who determined what the workshop should be about? You see, most schools teach parents the same way they teach children. Well, we decide for them what the workshop should be about. That's a mistake. In other words, if you know that parents are younger these days, are less mature, are changing demographics, then before giving them a workshop on their child's development, why don't you give them one on their own development, on relationships? If you want black men to be there, give them a workshop on a conspiracy to destroy black boys, or how to find a job. In other words, one school district in this country, Cleveland Heights, has a 50-50 black-white school population, but a 97% white PTA. They wanted to bring me in to get more parents to come out, but they were concerned with the title. The title says Developing Positive Self-Images and Discipline in Black Children. If they kept the word black in, the white parents may not show up. But if they don't keep the word black in, the black parents may never attend. They decided to keep the word black in and broke a record that night. And black parents said it was the first time you finally gave me a workshop about me. Now, of course, let me be honest. There were very few white parents. There were only about 43 of them, about 400 black parents. So the next day, I had to meet with the white PTA council. We're still working on how to get both groups together. But we at least solved the objective. We got more black parents to come out. In other words, what I'm really getting at with regards to this is that black parents have told me, Jawanza, I know I need to be there. But if all we're going to discuss is last month's minutes, some budgetary changes, and a couple of personnel changes with a boring speaker, I'm simply not going to be there. I gave you a clue, a boring speaker. Remember in the oral tradition, the strength of the black church, a charismatic speaker. If you want black parents to be there, not only have an interesting topic, but also the speaker has to be one that's able to keep their attention. It's unfortunate we have to do this, but we do. And we have to find ways to continue those kind of marketing efforts. And then, of course, there's always those we always can depend on. For example, providing food. It works almost every time. Providing child care. It works the majority of the time. Providing transportation. If your meeting is at night in a low-income, crime-ridden area, you may need to provide security. And then the one that works every time, have the children perform. In other words, parents, black, white, and Hispanic, and Asian, they all love to see their children perform. You know how many programs I've been on where the choir, not the class choir, the school choir sang before me. And then the principal said, oh, and by the way, we're bringing Dr. Jawanza in for a 30-minute parent workshop. And to make sure you stay, and then the choir will then come back with their clothing selections. It works every time. We have to find those kinds of ways. And why do we have to do that? We have to do that because before 1954, when we had teachers who lived on the same block, who went to the same church, see, black parents have always trusted the teachers. They've always felt that you were the primary educator. I'm now telling parents, unfortunately, you may not be the primary educator. You may not know what's best for their children. A little later on, we're going to discuss on the conspiracy to destroy black boys. The black children are 17% of all children in this country, but they're 41% of all the special ed children. Now, 17 doesn't equal 41. And it gets worse. If a black child's going to be labeled EMR, LD, BD, 85% of the time, it's going to be a black boy. Now, you see, it's called a staffing, where you have this white principal, white psychologist, white social worker, white teacher, or black in skin but not in consciousness, all telling this parent to sign on the dotted line. And because black parents believe in you, they say, well, whatever you think is best. Now, white parents may agree to LD, but they're not agreeing to the watered-down curriculum of EMR and BD, because they realize that they are the primary educators of their children. And so you can't have it both ways. You can't on the one hand say you want them to be the primary educator, and then when they question you, get offended. You know what they told me? I'm not comfortable talking to teachers. In other words, here we are with our BAs, MAs, and PhDs, and use that kind of jargon vocabulary with these parents. In other words, if you're so secure in your degrees, then why don't you communicate with them? I believe as Jesus said, what you do unto the least of these, you also do unto me. When you are educated, you know how to serve. Many of us are uncomfortable talking with these parents. And so we have to begin to work on those kinds of issues. But some other ideas, because our time is running so tight with regards to parenting. There's a rumor going around that low-income parents cannot produce high-achieving students. Do you believe that? No. There's also a rumor going around that single parents cannot produce high-achieving students. Do you believe that? No. And so we don't believe it either. So my book on images and Reginald Clark's book, Family Life and School Achievement, we looked at that. Low income, high income. Single parents, two parents. And what we found out was it was not how much money was in the home. It was not how many parents were there. What it boiled down to was the quality of the interaction. In other words, if you want to produce high-achieving students, we identified 5 common characteristics. First of all, in the high-achieving homes, these parents believe that the world is going to be better for their children. You know, in some homes, the parents are already downtrodden, already beaten, and they transmit a dismal attitude to their children. Well, not in high-achieving homes. These parents say, well, it may not be all what I want it to be, but it's going to be better for my children. They first of all transmit hope. Secondly, in high-achieving homes, these parents are consistent with their children. You know, in some homes, mama got one rule on Monday, another rule on Wednesday. Yeah. Not here. There's consistency here. Third, in the high-achieving homes, these parents are complimentary to their children. You know, in some homes, every other word is 4 letters. Yeah. Not here. These parents praise their children. Fourth, in the high-achieving homes, these parents give their children high expectations. And then last but not least, besides transmitting hope, being consistent, being complimentary, giving high expectations, these parents believe that they are the primary educators of their children. In other words, there have always been 2 kind of parents in America. There's a teacher-parent conference. You want to talk to the parent. Now, the first kind of parent, not in this study, will probably pass the buck. Will probably say, well, I don't know what to do with them either. I got some of my own problems. Can you solve some of mine too? The first kind of parent will pass the buck. But then you get the second kind of parent who listen to you very carefully. And upon conclusion, will say very softly, thank you very much for telling me about my child. Now, if you can just leave us alone for a moment, I can assure you, you won't have that problem anymore in life. Now, you leave the meeting. You don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but it must be like The Godfather, where the parent gave the child an offer the child could not refuse. Or as Bill Cosby told Theo on the first day of the show, I brought you in here, and I'll take you out. Now, these are the kind of parents we like to have more of. In other words, we want to come back and have a detailed workshop with your parents. It's a 16-step parent involvement program. And it first of all starts with establishing goals. You see, I believe if you're going to be a good parent, you have to establish goals for your children. And once you have goals for them, then you can go into stage 2, a home program. But you see, you can't even go into stage 2 if you aren't clear on stage 1. In other words, when I ask many parents what kind of goals they have for their children, I hear things like, well, as long as he don't beat me, as long as he gets a job, as long as he stays out of jail. Well, see, if your goals are weak, then your home program will be weak. I have 2 sons, 15 and 10. I only have 3 goals for them. First of all, I want them to put God #1 in their lives. Secondly, I want them to be committed to the liberation of black people. And then third, I want my sons to be the employer rather than being the employee. Now the question is, if these are the goals to my sons, what kind of game plan, home program, or strategy can I develop that will hopefully, and I said hopefully, that's a key word. You see, I control the process. I don't control the result. It's like this workshop. How I give the workshop, my business. How you use the workshop, your business. There's no way I can ever guarantee any of this for my children. You see, I sleep good every night because I understand what I control. I control the process, not the result. But the question is, if my home program is my process, if I want them to put God first in their lives, should they go to church? Should they read the Bible or Quran? What do you mean maybe? If I want them to believe in God, they need to go to church or read the Bible or Quran. Hold on, we'll come back to you a little bit later on. If I want them to be committed to the liberation of black people, should they begin to read black children's literature? Know that King's birthday is January 15th, Malcolm's birthday, May 19th, Gari's birthday, August 17th, and Kwanzaa in December. They should know that. If I want them to be the employer, should I also give some of my own homework? Not just rely on school homework? You know, we have children that know that 6 times 3 is 18, but when you give them a word problem, they don't know what to do. If you want to train a child, give the skill first. If you want to educate a child, give the need first. We have people with BAs, MAs, and PhDs out of work. Can't make nothing. They have been trained, not educated. We have to work on that. So these are just some of the kinds of ideas we want to share with you with regards to parenting. That we want them to believe they're the primary educator. And that means you have got to share some of the power. In other words, we can't on the one hand say we want them to be the primary educator. And then when they begin to question us, use our authority over them.